What's up and welcome back to the Kinda Funny Screencast. This time we are giving our initially spoiler-free review and then go full spoiler cast mode to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1. Nick and I, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, in fact, sat at this very desk and reviewed episodes 1 and 2. And man, less than a month later, the show is already over.
Perfect. Perfect.
What an interesting release schedule, right? We got 2 episodes, 3, 2.
Yeah.
4 weeks, done.
I think that's great.
It kind of worked for this.
Yeah, because it kept me going. Literally, I knew we were going to talk about it. I knew we were going to watch it today, but waking up yesterday, I was just excited. I was like, oh, I want to watch Spider-Man. And I was like, oh, right, we get to talk about it the next day, which is great. And then looking at it, I'm like, got 2 episodes left. 1 episode for something that runs, what are we talking, 22 minutes?
Less than 30, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not enough. It's not enough to get you into it. So I think that's a really cool rollout schedule.
Yeah, the midnight needs to go. I don't, like, we've been doing so well with Disney Plus having 6 p.m. releases. I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
This is the Kind of Funny Screencast. Sometimes we get together and talk about movies, TV shows, trailers, all of that stuff in the world of entertainment. We have a whole bunch going on right now. Of course, we're doing our Alien versus Predator in review series. We also did our MCU in review. We updated our rankings and just reviewed Captain America: Brave New World, so you can check that out. We have now done Aliens, and this week we are entering the world of the Predator.
Have you watched this yet, Tim?
I did watch it for the very first time a couple days ago, and I don't want to say anything, but Nick, I can't wait to say a lot.
Oh my God. There's a lot to say.
So thank all of you for your supports for all of our entertainment stuff. The in-review series have been doing very, very well, and I cannot thank you enough for that. Whether you're supporting us on YouTube or on podcast services, remember, the Kind of Funny in-review podcast feed is where you're going to get all of our in-reviews and screencast episodes. So if we're talking about movies and TV, that's where you're going to want to be. And if you want to support above and beyond, you can get the Kind of Funny membership on YouTube, Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. It gets you the shows ad-free. You can watch live as we record them, and you get a daily exclusive Greg Way. What a deal. What a steal. Shout out to our Patreon producers, Delaney Twining, Carl Jacobs, Omega Buster, and Karen Lidner. They know what getting things ad-free is all about, and they're having a great time. I asked Carl personally, and he said yes. Great time.
I mean, Carl absolutely.
Great
having him in the office.
A little housekeeping for you. We are an 11-person business, all about live talk shows. We had a whole bunch of stuff today. We had a Games Daily with Mike and Nathan Grayson. We had a fun stream of Scaravan 66 with Mike and Greg that you can check out. And we are right now doing Spider-Man, but this isn't the only screencast you're getting today. We are also going to be doing our Cobra Kai series finale review discussion, which I can't wait to get to. And then next week, really exciting stuff. On Monday, I will be debuting me and Gia's wedding video. You can get that after Gamescast as a YouTube premiere. So get hyped, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a fun time. It includes Nick's speech, includes Greg's speech, includes Cisco performing. It's cool stuff. Today, we're brought to you by Built Rewards, Factor, and Stash, but we'll tell you all about that later. We got to get into it. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Spoiler-free for right now. We're going to quickly get into spoilers, though, because I don't think that there's too much to say.
Sure.
But I did want to give an update because me and you were, I'd say, glowing about episodes 1 and 2. Both of us going into this show slightly hesitant, just based on it seemingly having a lot of like production issues. Of the show was originally announced as a origin story for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. This was going to be, originally it was called Spider-Man Freshman Year, and we're going to kind of like see the origin story there. And then they went a completely different direction. The art style never kind of like hit in the right way in all the pre-release images and short clips and stuff. So when we got the first 2 episodes and it was like, whoa, this is actually really good. I wonder if they could keep it up. Nick, 10 episodes in, did they keep it up?
They did. I think this show is phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed it, and I think this is just a great way to do an animated show in the modern day. Great storyline. Again, we talked a lot about taking some of the tried and true characters, turning them around a little bit, kind of making you wonder about them a little bit, seeing a different origin story for them a little bit. And I think I think that was great. I think it was brilliant. And I think by the end of it, when you hit that last episode and you kind of realize how everything plays out, I think you get exactly what you want, but just a little different. And that's like the highest possible praise you could give for a show of this ilk.
Yes.
What did you
Especially-
think?
Especially for Spider-Man, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
think-
how many times have we seen these stories over and over again? And this still, my glowing recommendation for it is that it still feels fresh. It feels new. I'm seeing a Spider-Man Norman Osborn story for the how manyth time now. And I'm still intrigued. I'm still interested. They still found a different way to tell this story to keep me interested and keep me coming back. And it feels very, very modern, which is maybe not necessarily the best thing sometimes, but this feels modern while also paying a lot of homage to the nostalgia of Spider-Man. And this is just for me a really, really fun time.
Yeah, I am blown away by this. Like all jokes aside between me and you of the fight between Spectacular and Ultimate Spider-Man, like Spectacular Spider-Man is one of these shining examples of superhero media, period, to me. Coming out in 2008, it only ran 2 seasons. And due to like licensing and Sony owning that side and now Disney and whatever, like I don't think we're ever going to see a continuation of that story, which is a definite bummer. And I never thought we'd be able to hit those highs ever again. And I am so happy that I was wrong, because I think that this show is as good, if not better, than Spectacular Spider-Man. And it's because of a lot that's come before. And God, Spectacular will always hold a very special place in my heart. And the reason that I've always been so high on that show is every decision they made for it came from, all right, how do we do something in service of these characters? And how do we make sure that we're not just doing the exact same thing again? And when you see characters, you are familiar with where they might be going, but they throw you off the scent just enough and do just enough twists and turns that it doesn't feel cheap, but it feels faithful to who the characters are. So when reveals happen that are what you expect, or things that are totally a new take on what you expect, it's satisfying. Yeah. And every single little line of dialogue and character introduced, they're all consequential. Like Peter's cast of friends in Spectacular Spider-Man, every single one of them wasn't just a throwaway character to have exposition. They had their own arcs and had their own kind of world that they were setting up. And this show, I think, takes that even further. And it's because it has the luxury of, I mean, you think about the 90s Spider-Man, how many limitations that show had, where it's like he couldn't even really punch enemies because of what superhero cartoons were at the time, right? This show is violent. The show is like,
it's very adult.
Really violent in some ways. And not in like over the top, unnecessary ways, but in ways that make it feel like, although it's a cartoon, it makes it feel grounded and real in a way that the MCU feels and the Marvel Studios produced movies feel. And this show has the luxury of having a mainstream audience that has familiarity with so many moments and characters from the MCU storyline that they're able to kind of enhance the Spider-Man story by dropping things like the incident in Lagos of what happened in Civil War, or obviously the battle for New York, and like all of these things that allow us to, without even thinking about it, put this world in a place and time and understand the dynamics between different characters. And I think that that is very well realized in this show, and 10 out of 10 times enhances the Spider-Man story, while also being able to introduce even me, out of all the superhero stuff, I definitely know Spider-Man the best. There are so many characters in this that I'm like, oh, I've heard of you, Nico, whatever.
Nico Minoru?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's one of the Runaways.
Yeah.
I don't know who she is.
Yeah.
This show's now teaching me that. And I think that, like, to me, that's the most exciting thing, is to like be familiar, but then also be able to be exposed to so many great new characters. And some of the cast in this is just very unexpected takes, like Lonnie standout.
Lonnie to me was the standout story for sure.
So I'm going long here, but like I just really want to say this show is special. Like before we get to spoilers, like I really, really, really think that anybody that wrote it off because it's just more Spider-Man, I don't like the art style or whatever, watch this, give it a shot. It's phenomenal. Like it's a very, very special show. And also shout out to Marvel Animation. Like they really, I mean, X-Men 97 was another one that I kind of wrote off of, like, I'm happy this is happening, but like no way it's going to be good. And it was incredible. Yeah. What If seasons 1 through 3, maybe not the best thing ever, but very good. And I think that the way that everything's playing together, it's like, I believe in Marvel Animation right now. And this show is already signed on greenlit for seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that's very, very exciting, because we were robbed of season 3 of Spectacular Spider-Man. But enough of the spoiler-free talk. I want to get in to our spoiler talk. Nick, where do you want to begin?
Dude, I think we should go through the beginning of this, right? Because the beginning is the end, as they say. That blew my mind.
Oh my God. I mean, we all thought it was multiverse.
I thought it was multiverse too.
And it's Doctor Strange using the fucking time stone and portals.
Yes.
Wow.
There's
some
a great,
next level shit.
Literally, we're going to jump around a lot here, but there's a wonderful moment in the last episode. I think it's either the last episode or second to last episode where Norman is like, hey, I'm opening up this Einstein-Rosenberg bridge, which is like the, Asgardian sort of technology. And we're just going to avoid whatever. And it opens, but it looks like Doctor Strange's portal. And he's like, that's really cool. He's like, I didn't do anything yet. And Strange comes out. You're like, and then you see him. Of course, you remember at this point he's got, the time stone. And you're like, oh.
What was so really good about it, though, is this is a perfect example of the playing with expectations and our knowledge of stuff. Like, when I saw that portal, I was a little let down. I was like, oh, that imagery should mean something. Yeah. Like, that should mean it's Doctor Strange. That shouldn't just be whatever. And they immediately like, Tim, you fucking idiot. And he comes through, and it's like, oh, this isn't a multiverse Doctor Strange. This is the Doctor Strange that lives in this universe. Yes. Like, they even have the great kind of throwback to Civil War, where Captain America and Spidey go back and forth of like the Queens, like, Brooklyn, like that whole thing. Spidey does that with Doctor Strange, and he's just like, oh, like Midtown. He goes, no, Greenwich,
right?
And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing.
But there is then my question for you then is, there's a moment where, because obviously I love the backdrop of the Sokovia Accords, I love the backdrop of they talk about the fight at the airport, and he's not involved in that. So this is not the Tom Holland universe.
No,
right?
no, it's not.
Okay.
No,
I was going to say
originally it was going to be.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking that.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is that the Doctor Strange we see in this belongs to this universe.
Yes,
when you watch episode 1,
it's
heavily implied that it's a different universe.
God, well, that's at least that's the red herring, as they say. So I love that. I'm always a sucker for like time bending. This makes no sense. Whatever. Peter made himself into a spider. That's crazy.
Norman kind of made it happen.
And I also love that, by the way, that always solves the problem of like, oh shit, he's got his blood. Like, how are you not? You're gonna have to fight like 30 Spider-Man. Oh, okay. Well, the thing got out and completed the circle, which is super cool, right? I love that.
But even that as a plot point of when he got the blood, I'm like, oh, and they set up. They're like, oh, like I wish we could have many Spider-Man. I was like, oh my God, they've done that story before, but I was like, that's cool. Like, I want to see it.
We'll see if that's what season 2 is all about. Because he probably has you have to imagine they've got the DNA still in there. But my read was,
you know what he does have?
He's got the glider.
He's got, and a little venom.
Oh, he does have a little venom. Right. So as we end, obviously, I think that's such a cool way for Venom to come. You see it kind of coming as it's closing, and you see as they turn it into little like ink blots and shit. You're like, okay, here's where we're gonna go. But he does have the venom now, and I think it's interesting because I think the highlight of the show for me is the Norman character. He's not necessarily a good guy, but is he a bad guy, or is he just a business guy? Right? We see him being shitty toward Doc Ock in a great scene where they have a great back and forth. And the Doc Ock character, by the way, might be my favorite character of this whole thing.
He's so good.
He's so silly and so fun. And then seeing the imagery of him having the figuring out the tentacles at the end and the arms rather, I think is super cool. But I mean, the Norman character is interesting because obviously he lies to Spider-Man right off the rip, right? He gives him this internship, not because he's the smartest, but because he's one of the 5 people he thinks could potentially be the Spider-Man. And then, of course, he figures it out.
But even then, though, it's like that was like this just shows like the intellect that this Norman has. Yeah. Like he picked those 5 people because he knew one of them was Spider-Man. Also, he had the plan to build this space bridge and knew that he needed these 5 people.
Right.
It's like
4
there's
people, sorry.
layers.
4, I think I said 5.
Okay, well, but it's so cool. Like it's just so well thought out. And again, every one of those characters matters. Yes. Like every one of those characters, like you see them in episode 1 or 2, and it's like some of them are names that I'm familiar with, but I was just like, oh, that's more of like an Easter egg. I didn't expect them to be like actual characters that we're going to come back to in the future.
Yeah. I think it's cool. And again, I think that's great, right? And that's a hallmark of a good series is that I could sit in that room with those characters and I bet they could tell good stories from then on, right? One of whom obviously has a great reveal at the end.
Oh my God.
That blew my mind.
I mean, Daredevil even being in this.
Daredevil being
Charlie Cox's voice with the theme song.
With the theme song.
And then him coming back towards the end. I didn't see that coming. And like one of the girls being a character that I'm not familiar with. I was Googling it.
What was it?
It's Taskmaster's daughter.
Ew, interesting.
Yeah, so
what was her name? It was like Serendipity or something like that, right?
something like
It was something like Finesse. Maybe it was Finesse.
yeah.
Finesse?
Yeah,
Why did I think
Finesse.
Serendipity? I think I got Sin 2 Nerdle on the brain still. That was dope. Finesse. Super cool, and that makes sense because obviously Daredevil's not a bad guy, and Norman Osborn's probably a bad guy. And then when you see Daredevil versus Spider-Man, I'm always just a sucker for two heroes that have to fight each other because they just don't know where the other one's at yet.
And throwing the baton and it bouncing and it. Come on, man.
I mean, first off, shout out to Charlie Cox.
Yes,
and shout out to the Daredevil Reborn. I cannot wait.
Dude, we
don't deserve this.
2 weeks away.
I mean, actually, you know what? We do deserve.
We do deserve this.
We held this shit down for like 7 years. Wonderful moment. Awesome to see that. Awesome to see the other, a bigger cameo from Iron Man, which is silly to say that is a cameo, but it is a cameo.
Yeah,
super cool. And I just love where Spider-Man is in this, right? Spider-Man is not a worldwide hero. Spider-Man is not someone that is looked at as an Avenger level person.
In the name.
Spider-Man is just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and you get that all throughout, especially when Iron Man lands and you realize, oh, no, there are levels, right? Iron Man is an Avenger. He is a planetary protector. He is a person that nobody messes with unless you're like real, right? Spider-Man, on the other hand, really has some trouble here. And a lot of it is just telling that story of him finding his footing as Spider-Man or his webbing, whatever. And I think that's beautifully done with the story arc with the suits, which, again, sucker for.
Yeah.
I played the Spider-Man game. I realize how important the suits are to everyone. For me, it's just an aesthetic thing. I love the look of that all white suit. It is sterile. It looks like an alien, but I'm like the white, navy, and red is so nasty.
I love it. I think that the way they handled suits in this show might be the best that we've seen so far in a non-comic book format for this, where I loved him trying a whole bunch. There was a reason for why he had access to a whole bunch with Norman. And the one that they ended on, I'm like, I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more unique because I didn't expect to fall in love with this iteration of Spider-Man and want to see him in a Spider-Verse or something like that in the future. Now I definitely do.
Yeah.
So I wanted the suit to kind of be more like the video game one where it's like immediately identifiable.
Yeah.
Fuck that though. This suit is so goddamn good, man. And the colors pop so hard on this. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of the art style, and I'm still not, but it works so well for the show, and it allows, when the fight scenes start popping off, it feels like the video game. There's so much love for the video game's movesets and like just combat in this show, and like you can't do that in traditional 2D type animation.
I agree. I'm also currently watching the newest season of Invincible, and it's interesting because I came from this last week, watched Invincible this week, was taken aback by how much I still do love that the sort of the 2D hand-drawn art style. I think with the exception of a few things, they've got a few 3D elements in that show as well. But then coming directly from that, like watching an episode of that and coming to this, it is a shock. It does move differently. It does hit differently. But once you're immersed in it, I'm all in. And you're right. The ability to sort of have, again, I go back to the ability to move the camera around, right? It's so hard to have to animate every single angle, where in this, it's just you can have, really it feels like an animated movie that Pixar would do, or an actual movie with the way they actually move the camera, with the way they actually place the camera and all that stuff. So I think it's really, really cool. Going back to the suit for a second, it's perfect. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, we get the awesome reveal of him seeing it with Harry. Harry printed it out for him because Harry gets him. We'll talk about the Harry relationship in a second. I love it. But seeing the eyes and seeing it, he's like, look, I took your original design and I made this for you, which is cool. But what got me were two elements of the suit that were cool. One was the piano black around the eyes, which was sick.
The lenses like
you would, but it was a little bit more shiny than Tom's. I think Tom's were like a little bit more matted. And then he had the web slingers had a very, very, very similar style to that Tom Holland suit, which I thought was really, really a cool and you only see him for like 1 second when he's doing this.
Yeah.
But they're
there,
baked into the suit and they're there. Super cool. Other than that, it just is. I mean, it's the classic suit. You can't not.
But they nailed
with
the classic suit.
With no web.
But it's the classic suit. But it's the MCU version of the classic suit, which I love. It. The tiny spider. It just looked so damn good. I will say my biggest criticism of the show overall is not the art style. I got over that. I think that it actually really works, and I'm happy they went with it at the end of the day. But it's the art direction of some of the characters where I just don't feel that the look of Peter fits the character of Peter in the world that he's in. I feel like a lot of the surrounding friends that he has, like Lonnie and Nico and stuff, they feel like 2025 people. Yeah. Whereas this Peter's so clearly modeled after the OG Spider-Man comics. And like even Doc Ock and Doctor Strange and their looks, obviously I love them because they're comic accurate, but this doesn't feel like a comic accurate world. Like, do you agree with what I'm saying?
I would agree. There's a little bit of a dichotomy there, right? In that, you see there's a moment, I don't know if it's at the end of every single one, but at the you get a little credit sequence where you see the different iterations of Peter, and you can tell they went for a more modern look for him, but yes, he does look like a blast from the past kind of moment where he stepped out of the 50s or 60s, and Nico's got blue hair and blue eyeliner and blue lipstick. And it's not the story, right? Harry's got, a man bun. Lonnie's got cornrows. They're more modern day looking characters. And Peter does feel a little out of place the entire time as well. It does make you, and this is, no disrespect to the voice acting or the writing in this, but it does make you wish that this was a Tom Holland story, because Tom always feels like a dork, but in modern day, right? Where this does feel a little anachronistic.
I mean, to me, it's like, I feel like the character, the writing and stuff adds up with the rest of the characters. It's just the look of him.
The look of him
doesn't. It's like, something's up. But again, that's my one real criticism of this. Before we get to the ads, I do just want to say one thing, because I all day have been thinking about this. His dad, dude,
not
is
dead,
in jail, and voiced by,
I didn't catch it,
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Josh Keaton, man.
Oh, Josh Keaton. Okay,
cool.
That's
so
rad.
Freaking cool.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Uncle Ben at first.
Me too.
And then it went down and it said Parker. And I was like, oh, whatever.
Very, I mean, still Ben Parker.
Yeah, maybe it was Ben. Was it Ben?
No, it was Richard.
It was Richard, right?
Yeah. I think it said R. Parker.
Ben's his brother.
Yeah. All right, we're going to keep talking about this after a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Built. Y'all already know I'm a big points and rewards guy, but here's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you will earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/kindafunny. That's joinbilt.com/kindafunny. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/kindafunny to start earning points on your rent payments today. That's BILT. This episode's brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Greg Miller's been loving how simple it is to enjoy his Factor meals as he's rushing between shows each day here at Kinda Funny. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Multiple people here at Kinda Funny have been loving their experience with Factor, and you can too. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. This podcast is brought to you by Stash. Saving and investing can feel impossible, but with Stash, it's not just a reality, it's easy. Stash isn't just an investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with dependable financial strategies to help you reach your goals faster. They'll provide you with personalized advice on what to invest in based on your goals, or if you want to just sit back and watch your money go to work, you can opt into their award-winning expert-managed portfolio that picks stocks for you. Stash has helped millions of Americans reach their financial goals and starts at just $3 per month. Don't let your savings sit around. Make it work harder for you. Go to get.stash.com/kindafunny to see how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/kindafunny. Paid non-client endorsements, not representative of all clients and not a guarantee. Investment advisory services offered by Stash Investments LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Offer is subject to T&Cs.
We're back.
So much good in this show, man. I mean, the performances I was very impressed with. Coleman Domingo as Norman
A
Osborn.
standout. Yeah.
I hope that we see him in live action.
That would be amazing. As you think he's going to be a live action?
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
It could be very cool.
That could be very, very cool.
But yeah, I thought that he was definitely a standout. But overall, like, I was really into the different performances. And again, like I was saying earlier, like, we're so used to certain ideas or concepts or like imagery or sounds or whatever that getting introduced to the characters and it's like, oh, she's from Wakanda. And it's like we immediately put so much on that of understanding what she knows and what she's capable of, right? With one of the interns. Just like every character being introduced, you're like, oh, there's somebody, you know?
Yes.
Like Lonnie Lincoln is like, oh my God, it's Tombstone. And
but
to see his arc was so good. But we mentioned this in the screencast when we were talking about episodes 1 and 2. I love that they've maintained throughout the entire season that Lonnie is almost the main character of the story equally to Peter. Like the amount of times like there'll be like an actual split screen or like we'll see Peter do a story and then we get a mirror of it with Lonnie. Like they really handle that stuff well.
The Lonnie story arc is the only like small criticism for me because I feel like where he ends up is a little opposite from where he should end up. That character is so much more fleshed out, and I don't buy necessarily that he would end up being like, I'm going to be the leader of the 110. I would have expected that he would have learned and been like, this life's not for me, I'm going to walk away. And I was actually really expecting Tombstone to be like a hero in this. But where we find him at the end, you're like, oh no, he's just like, you can see that the humanity of him is chipping away and we're getting that sort of dead looking skin underneath. And so you're like, oh, I guess he's just going to be a bad guy here. And just a really, really powerful bad guy. But
I mean, I love it because if anything, the show's proven to me they got long-term storytelling down. Like if they introduce characters and plot lines, it's going to build and kind of pay off. And I mean, knowing we're getting more seasons of the show, like I like where we're at because getting the kind of the final fight moment where I mean, we didn't even talk about with great power
comes great respect.
Oh man,
what a great line!
It's just so good. And the moment we starts going off, that's very reminiscent of No Way Home when Tom's Spidey is about to kill Green Goblin and like going way too hard, and then Toby like stops him. Like we get that again, but it's with Lonnie stopping him. And I feel like we're gonna get that scene a season or two from now again of Peter trying to like stop him from going too far, being Tombstone. Because I kind of feel like with where it ends, like him having this power, like I get the vibe that it's not going to be straight into he's running the gang, he's a bad guy. I think it's going to be more like I'm going to do this my way. I have the power. We can change things. It doesn't need to be like the other guy ran it, you know?
Maybe, but you know he's going to just fall down that rabbit hole
eventually,
of course. It's a little disappointing, but obviously we have to have antagonists for old Peter to fight. And so Lonnie's going to wind up being there. But yes, I just like Norman's overall vibe. Like I like that we're starting from a standpoint with Peter where it's like, what if Norman was his like mentor? What if Tony Stark had never met him? What if Norman was the guy? And so I think it's just so much more interesting and unique to explore that territory, right? What's that going to be like with Harry, who is not the Harry that we found in James Franco's sort of loser Harry? This kid's happy and he's a success and he desperately just wants to hang out. Like, doesn't have any friends, so of course he wants to be Peter's not guy at the desk.
Yeah.
Not man in the chair, guy at the desk, right? Which I thought was hilarious. So we'll see what happens with his character. And obviously we know where, we know that the Harry character eventually ends up. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he doesn't. You know, and again, that's something that I loved so much about Spectacular Spider-Man is like from early episodes, it's like, okay, there's a goblin, but who is it? And I think the show does such a great job of like introducing characters and being like, oh, I know where this is going. And then it's like, is it going to though? Like even when we get pretty early on in the series, I think episode 3 or 4, we get the gang of bad guys, right? And it's like, oh shit, it's Chameleon, and it's they have the Unicorn, which is like, okay, cool, like a new Rhino, right? But then that other guy, it is the Rhino.
It is the Rhino. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. I like that they're again playing with stuff, but giving Spider-Man a rogues gallery that is ever evolving but feels like it makes sense. And I hate when a lot of superhero shows, when they just hit that monster of the week point where they're just throwing a bunch of stuff and it doesn't feel like it makes sense. They set up all the pieces on the board for me that I was so happy with it, of like, oh, Octavius is putting out all this tech that is allowing these people to be superpowered to some extent, right?
Yes.
Like it's creating a reasoning for why there are so many neighborhood level bad guys for Spider-Man to fight. And the conflict between Norman and Otto is so believable. And Norman's aspirations are believable. Like, these characters just feel like very well thought out versions of what we've seen before, to play really well with each other. That doesn't start to just feel like I'm watching a cartoon. Again, it feels more like movie level writing.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you take a look at just Norman. Like Doc Ock, obviously, as a foil for Norman is interesting. I think he's a little more one note than I would have wanted him to be, but it's still fun because the actor is just chewing scenery over there. The Norman character is interesting because I don't know his motivations. It's not Lex Luthor level world domination, but it is, I'm not above using teenagers to create the thing that I want to create. But why? Is it, I do buy that he's like, we need this technology. We need to be the ones that control this. And we need to be the ones to basically, if we have to, take the fight to other people, right? We have to protect ourselves. We've seen what has happened twice with New York getting invaded. We know the Sokovia Accords are a thing. We know that we have heroes that we can't necessarily count on. But it is sinister and it's exploitive to bring teenagers in under the guise of giving them an internship and then not giving them the choice of being a part of this massive project that could be potentially world ending. But I don't think what I like is that I just don't think that he is necessarily like evil for the sake of being evil.
Yep.
That is not interesting anymore in 2025. It's just not.
And with that too, I think that I loved, there's little bits of nuance in the characters and the writing of this that I think goes such a long way from just being the one note thing we've seen a million times, but having the interns all react to it differently.
Yeah.
And like having
what's his name's like,
dope,
Cho
just be like, hey, no, I'm just stay with Norman. Yeah. Like, I'm staying at Oscorp.
Getting a corner office.
It feels believable, and like that's super cool to me. And then seeing Daredevil's little sidekick, it's like, oh, that was a fun twist, because that character definitely seemed the least developed of all of them. But by the end, I'm like, oh, for a reason, she was a spy.
Yeah,
like, that's so cool. But yeah, I'm stoked to see where they go with all that stuff, because I feel like they're building a really nice, believable world that seems to follow some sense of rules. And oh god, seeing the Watcher,
just
seeing the Watcher
in the
pop
back
up, it's just like, oh man, like this
cool.
It's like, because Peter wasn't supposed to get powers that way. Like it's freaking cool, man.
I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I do think if you're on the fence watching this review, obviously we've made it this far, we've spoiled a lot of this for you, but I still think it's worth watching, because I think the show is very unique, and it does feel fresh for a character that's probably been done at this point multiple times, almost to death, in various different iterations.
For sure.
And this feels unique and it feels cool. And I absolutely want 2 more seasons of this right now. I would double down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this a couple times, but I do want to say it one more. Like, in addition to it being a Spider-Man cartoon, we've seen so many of these, good, bad, everything. We've seen this story so many times, video games, movies, multiple reboots of movies. In addition to that, we have now heard about the Battle of New York so many times. And there's so much MCU stuff that just is like, I get it. This show does it in a fresh way. And it melds those two things in, I think, one of the best examples we've seen yet of the Disney era of Marvel being able to play with all the toys in the sandbox in a way that is better as a whole, as opposed to being a part. So shout out to y'all. Keep it going. And God, bring on X-Men 97 season 2. Where's that at?
I know. I'll wait. I'll wait as long as we need to wait for that one.
Let us know in the comments below what you thought of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, or if we've convinced you to give it a shot. Remember, we are doing our Cobra Kai screencast as well. You can check that out. It should be live shortly after this one goes out. But until next time, I love you all. Goodbye.